Hi guys, this is an exciting video for me to make because Amazon Prime Days are here and there are so many great lenses that have come out in the last little while that are on really steep discounts right now. I am going to talk about third-party lenses that are available for the Sony E-mount, the Nikon Z-mount, and the Fuji X-mount. I already did an overall general Amazon Prime sale video where I talked about Sony cameras that are on sale, Sony lenses that were on sale, but today we're going to talk about some real bargains. I will link all of the reviews I have done to each of these lenses down below so you can check those out if you want, and I will keep the links updated because sometimes I can find a better price in the links. I will tell you the price of the lens, but then I will have a link down below. Make sure you check that for updated pricing to get the best possible price during this Amazon Prime week, I guess they call it now. It goes for 4 days. I am publishing this one on day 3. Now, this video is not sponsored by any of these lens companies, but it does have a sponsor, and that is Ulanzi. As you know, they sell my favorite ever tripod. This is on a steep discount. In fact, their whole website is on a big discount because it's their 10th year anniversary. So they want you to know, they told me to tell you that it's not just Amazon Prime that is happening, but they are having a fantastic sale as well. They wanted me to highlight this particular product. What is it? Well, I don't know. You'll have to find out in a few minutes. So I think the easiest thing to do here is break this up into different brands. First brand we'll talk about is TTArtisan. They have 2 lenses that are so great and on such a big sale. It's ridiculous. I'll do this one, APS-C, first. This is a 35mm f1.8. And a lot of times you see these big sales and you think, I just want to get something. I want to get a new lens. Well, I think this is the one to get because it is $100. It is down. It was already a great value. It was something like $130, but now it is $100 USD, at least on the Amazon US store. And it's just really well built. All metal build, no bells and whistles, but a really smooth turning focus ring. And the focus, this is an autofocus lens. All of these lenses are autofocus. That is primarily what I use, so that's what I'll tell you about. And the autofocus is great on this TTArtisan's 35mm f1.8. We will have a 35mm from Viltrox 1.7 that competes with this lens, certainly, but this one is very, very close optically to the Viltrox, and $100. Really can't say enough good things about this lens. It is one of the most popular lenses on my channel, not only because it is so low priced, but also because people love the results they get with it when they purchase the lens. Now, 35mm on APS-C camera is about a 52.5mm full frame field of view, so you get sort of that nifty 50 look. Great for real life photography, for travel photography, family vacations, things like that. A great walk around lens, and because it is so small, you can just carry it pretty much anywhere. And if you're into these cute little mini flashes like I am these days, you're not going to get any lens shadow here with this one. This is the ZF-08 by Zenico. This thing is $24 on Amazon Prime. I talked about that in the last video, but they go well together because this is a short little lens, so you're not going to get a shadow when it flashes out there like that you would with a bigger lens. The other TTArtisan lens I will mention is this full frame 75mm f2. And check this out. So well built, again, metal build, but it actually has an aperture ring that is clicky. Now, you would probably use this for portrait photography. That is usually what people like, around the 75 to 135 in terms of portraits, but 75 to 85 is a standard portrait length, usually for a lens. And this one works so very well. And its price, it's $159 on the sale. $159 for a good autofocusing portrait lens. Comes with this cool little square petal lens hood. I actually like that style, but look how small it is without the lens hood. My goodness. Smooth turning focus ring as well. I took this to New York City when Sony launched the A1 Mark II. I used this the whole time I was there. Absolutely loved it. Sony was looking at me sideways going, what are you using there? That's not a Sony lens. No, it's not. It's a $159 lens, Sony. F2 will still get you a nice shallow depth of field on a full frame camera. Get that blurry background, still lets in plenty of light. Can't recommend this one highly enough. Now, 7Artisan has something for you bargain hunters as well. This one is the 27mm f2 2.8, and this is a really well-built, solid lens. Autofocus works well, but 2.8, not going to give you a huge amount of background separation, is a very nice walk-around carry lens, and it gives you about a 41 millimeter field of view full frame equivalent. This is an APS-C lens, and it is a good lens, and it works well, and it is $103. Now, personally, I would probably take the TTArtisan 35 1.8 because it's close enough in terms of the size and focal length, while that one is a 1.8 and this one is a 2.8, but this is still a really good lens. And depending on where you are and what the prices are in your country, this could be a very attractive lens for you. It's also a little bit wider than that 35 millimeter 1.8 from TTArtisan. Next up, I want to talk about a major player, and that is Viltrox. They are right up there with Sigma and Tamron, surpassing them in some ways, and they have gone crazy. They have put up a lot of sales, steep discounts on great lenses. This one is the cheapest lens that I'm going to talk about this entire video. It is a little pancake lens, 28 millimeter f2.8. Most of it is actually the cap. Look at that. You take the cap off, can't even rest it on the ground without the cap because the lens element protrudes a little bit. Look at how small this is. An autofocus lens. You just open it up with this thing right there. It even has a little lens cap. Close it over there, open it up. You could use this as a lens cap for your camera body. I would call this a fun lens, an experimental lens. You're not going to get clinically sharp photos with this thing. You're going to get tons of flare and glare, and sometimes your image will get washed out if you have a really bright light in there because of the size of it. You know what I mean? There's only so much they can do with physics with this lens, but it still takes really great photos, and it's so much fun to use. You take an A6700, let's say, and then you put on this tiny little pancake lens. Oh, my old eyes. I can't even see where to line it up. My tiny little thing. And then those flashes that I love. That's not going to see any lens shadow. Look at this. It's like I got a little Fuji X100 here. But even though I have this on the A6700, this is actually a full frame lens, if you can believe it. So on the A6700, it'll be something like a 42 millimeter full frame equivalent. But on a full frame, it will be 28 millimeters. You can get this for the Nikon Z full frame, Sony E full frame, and they also do have a Fuji version. But of course, because Fuji is an APS-C sensor, it's going to be about a 42 millimeter on your Fuji. But this thing, so much fun, $79. $79. Its full price is only $99, but $79 for an autofocus lens that will give you lots of joy. Marie Kondo would approve of this lens. Next up, I want to talk about my favorite lens series in all of the camera world. That is the Viltrox Air series. They have 6 of them so far, 3 full frame and 3 APS-C. Let's talk about the full frame first. This 20 millimeter f2.8, that's the first one that I got in this series. So 2.8 on a full frame will still give you a nice bit of light and some background separation. And you can still use this for wide angle photography, for vlogging. 20 millimeters, that's a pretty wide focal length. Usually with a lens this big, the best you can hope for is like a 24 or a 35. So this tiny little lens right here, so lightweight to take around. If you're in tight spaces, then you can use this lens for your talking head shots. You can use it for, like I say, vlogging, filming your gorgeous mug. You can take wide angle photography like landscapes. This is such a great lens. The lens I'm using currently is a 15 millimeter on my Sony. So this lens is even wider for a field of view than this 15. And the 15 I'm touching right there because I'm using it on 15 APS-C. So that is roughly about a 22, 23 millimeter focal length. So this one even wider at 20 millimeters. This is an excellent lens. Optically fantastic. All of these Air series lenses are optically fantastic. And they are also very, very dead simple. Just a smooth turning plastic focus ring in plastic housing with a USB-C port on the bottom for updating. Viltrox have so many lenses right now in so many different categories. Once they start adding zooms, I think it might be game over for everybody else. Oh, and did I tell you the price of this? I don't think I did. $140 to get this quality of lens at this size for 140 bucks. What a great steal. And this one here is even cheaper, a 40 millimeter full frame focal length right here. This is $135, and I think this is a wonderful lens as well. Just like all of them, I'll basically be repeating myself over and over again, saying optically, they are almost flawless. They're just great with chromatic aberration, great with longitudinal chromatic aberration. They are sharp as a tack. They do well with flaring and ghosting. Not sure how Viltrox did it with these Air series, but if you want a real nifty 50, they have one. A 50 millimeter f 2.0. So it's not a 1.8 like some of the other nifty 50s out there, but I will gladly take a 2.0 over a 1.8 when you get this level of quality. This Viltrox Air full frame 50 millimeter, that is my pick for all of the 50s out there. People often ask, there's a lot of 50s out there. A lot of them are pretty cheap. Which one should I get for my full frame camera? And this is the one, in my opinion, this Viltrox 50 millimeter 2.0. Now this is a good spot to thank our sponsor Ulanzi on this fantastic video. Don't forget to check out their website and see all of the sales. Great sales on so many camera accessories. They are so inventive. I love them. They sell that F38 quick release system, all the tripods that I love, lights, whatever you need, you get it at really great prices. And check this out. This is actually an overhead phone holder. This thing is so clever and you can use it in so many ways, but the way I have been using it is actually as an overhead rig for this entire video. All of the top-down shots you are seeing are done with my phone and this mount. Let me show you this way. I have the little foot out here, put that anchored under my desk. I have the phone here, and then pretend there is cool stuff down here. I can raise that up, then I just tighten this right here, and it is going to be stable. Stay right there, get my overhead shot. Of course, I'm doing that off to the side, so it's much higher up. You wouldn't believe, I'm not even going to be able to show you in the thing. Look at how far that goes. And you may ask, if my phone is up there, how do I start and stop it? Well, you can connect your phone to Bluetooth and start and stop it with this button right here. This actually pulls out of the unit itself, and now you can have this little remote control to start and stop your recording. And if you just want to use it as a tabletop tripod for your phone, you can put it on the MagSafe like that, or you can actually open this up and then put your phone in. I love all of the clever little thoughts of this. This is the TT8 overhead selfie stick. Use it as a selfie stick, use it as an overhead angle, use it however you like. I am glad that Ulanzi sent this to me because it gives me now a third angle. I got this angle here, got that angle there, and then an easy overhead angle to show my fancy products. Thanks again, Ulanzi. So go check out their site. Thanks for supporting the channel. And like I said, they have 3 APS-C lenses as well. They are adding more, but the widest one they currently have is this one, the 25mm f1.7. So if you have an APS-C camera, you want to do a talking head setup, or you want to do interviews, things like that, I think this 25 1.7 is the way to go because it is the widest focal length you can get out of this Air series. It's also great for photography, not a super wide focal length and not that tight, just in between there at about 37.5 millimeters full frame field of view. And the 25mm is a 1.7. It's great to see the lower f-stops on these APS-C lenses to help you with your smaller sensor in lower light environments. So 1.7 right there, and you can get this for $140. 25mm, 1.7, fantastic optically, $140. And for $3 more, you can get a 35mm f1.7. So if you have a little more room in your studio, you want to back up your camera, this will work just fine. It's about a 52.5mm focal length in terms of full frame field of view. It's a 1.7, of course, as well. So it gives you much more real-to-life looking photography. Great for your get-togethers and your vacations, your travel. tiny little lens, $143. Can't do any better. You can also use that one for some portrait work if you want. However, if you're really into portraits, you want a nice blurry background, make your subject pop, and have a focal length that is typical for portraits, the 56mm f1.7 from Viltrox is the way to go. This lens is so great, and at 1.7 you're still going to get a nice background separation. The gold standard is the Sigma 56mm f1.4, but that lens is about $500. Yeah, I just checked it. $478 is the Sigma 56 1.4. So you can get this Viltrox 56 1.7, which competes mightily in terms of optical quality and sharpness and autofocus, and this one's $144. So much cheaper, and definitely my pick for a budget APS-C portrait lens. People will be wowed by your APS-C portraits with this guy. However, speaking of wow and portraits, my favorite portrait lens ever for an APS-C camera is this Viltrox right here. As you can see, much larger than the 56. Is that the 56? So look at that in terms of a size difference, but this one is a 1.2. So you need a lot of glass for that 1.2. So to be able to get a 1.2 on your APS-C camera, that is equivalent to the background separation of a full frame 1.8. Crazy the photos you can take with this 75mm. So if you have the money and you don't mind carrying around a bit of a bigger lens and you're really into portrait photography, I think that you should do yourself a favor and get this Viltrox 75mm 1.2. My goodness. This is now 20% off, and you can get it for $464, which is the lowest price I have seen on this lens. Now, this is what they're calling their APS-C Pro series. They do have another lens in that series, and that is the 27mm f1.2. So another f1.2. This one much better for your videography because 27mm on your APS-C camera. You can definitely use this for general purpose video, talking head video, documentaries, things like that. 27mm is a great focal length. Of course, you can still use it for photography and get a general shooting lens that will be magnificent, but of course, once again, a little bit bigger, a lot bigger than these APS-C Air lenses, as you can see, but the quality, my goodness, it is worth it sometimes to carry around a bigger lens. Another APS-C lens that Viltrox has on sale is their widest APS-C lens. This is the 13mm f1.4. This was the first lens that I got from Viltrox where I went, wait a second, something's different at Viltrox. What is this thing? It is so great. There are a lot of people who are using this right now for their talking head because it gives you a very wide field of view. In terms of full frame, it's close to about a 20mm. So if you're in tight spaces, you're one of those van life kids, you know, walking around with your dirty feet in your van, then right here, this 13mm 1.4 is great because you still get background separation at a 1.4 even with a wide angle like this. You like to do astrophotography with your APS-C camera, or you like to just hold it out and vlog your face, then there you go, 13mm 1.4 from Viltrox. Let's see what the price is. $388, so a lot cheaper than a Sony wide-angle 11mm f1.8. This is brighter, not quite as wide, and certainly bigger and heavier, but a lot cheaper. And the Sony 11 is a little bit too wide, some people find, for things like this talking head, whereas this guy, it's not super ultra wide when you are using it. Plenty wide, but it doesn't distort the edges. So a lot of people like this as a happy medium between an ultra wide and a wide. So Viltrox also has a Pro series for their full frame cameras. This is a brand new lens, so I'm very surprised to see them put it on a discount, but it is great that they put it on a discount. You can see the little Pro moniker right there. This is such a well-built lens. It feels so fantastic. It has some metal on it, but the metal has like a matte finish. The rings turn so smoothly. This thing competes basically with a G Master 1.4 85mm, but it is a fraction of the price. And this is what I say about Viltrox coming in and starting to take over. I can't believe the quality they are putting in these lenses at these prices. This is also 20% off, $478. I'm going to tell you right now, $478 for this pro level 1.4 portrait full frame lens, I think is bananas. If you're looking for a bright full frame wide angle lens, Viltrox has put the 16mm f1.8 on sale for 20% off. This one is, what is this one? $464. Sony has recently put out a 16mm f1.8, and I do think that is a better lens because optically they are very similar, but the Sony one, it is smaller and lighter, and of course because it's a first-party lens with first-party bodies, you get higher burst rates with things like the A9 III, and you have those focus breathing compensation. However, that lens is a fair bit more expensive than this Viltrox 16, especially when you factor in these Prime Day deals. So if you need a wide-angle lens for your astrophotography, for your street photography, for your landscape, or you just want a really wide-angle field of view for your videography, 16mm f1.8 is on sale today and tomorrow. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, these in fact are the flagship series for Viltrox. These are the two lab lenses that they currently have out. They will be adding more, but this 135 f1.8, I love the images coming out of this. To me, they were better than the Samyang 135 1.8 when I tested that, although that is a smaller, lighter lens to carry around. This one is a big boy, but I enjoyed the images coming out of this much more, and I also enjoyed the images coming out of this over the Sony G Master 135 f1.8, and of course it's much less than that Sony G Master, especially with the sale. 20% off, you can get this for $719 right now. I think that is better than the introductory price. Build quality, second to none. You have an aperture ring that can be clicked or declicked. You have a smooth turning focus ring, little screen right here, switches for your focus ranges, 2 focus hold buttons. This lens is so great. Yes, it is big and heavy to carry around, but there is nothing like taking a portrait at 1.8 with a 135. It's just crazy cream corn back there. It's magical looking, the photos that come out of a 135 1.8, and there are some portrait photographers who will only shoot at this focal length because they love it so much. The newest addition to this lab lineup is a 35mm f1.2. Videographers, they literally jumped for joy. Not figuratively, they literally leapt out of their seats when this was announced at NAB. 35 1.2. So as much background separation as you need, as much light as you need. It is, of course, much bigger and heavier than some of the 35s that are out there. But 35 1.2, Sony doesn't even have a 35 1.2. And this thing's 20% off, $799. I'll tell you what, if Sony does release a 35mm 1.2 one day, I can't imagine it will be much better optically than this thing. Maybe it'll be smaller and lighter. Sony does like to try to make things small and light, but wow, oh wow. I don't think anybody would be disappointed with this lens when it comes to shooting their video or photography if you like the 35mm focal length. Now let's talk about 2 of my favorite lenses from the Yongnuo company. Pretty much anything by Yongnuo that you get, you will be quite happy with. Build quality is great. These 2 are wide angle lenses. This 11mm f1.8 is really the only alternative to the Sony 11mm. Where is that? Where's my Sony 11? There it is. So here, check out the Sony 11. As you can see, the Sony lens cap is on. Let's make it more fair. There you go. As you can see, they are still very, very comparable in size, and the 11mm is much cheaper from Yongnuo than from Sony. Now, the Sony is going to do better with active stabilization on your cameras if you are using them handheld. It just plays better with the Sony system, these first-party Sony lenses. And seeing how at $230, it is less than half the price of that Sony lens, you can see why a lot of people are opting for this 11mm 1.8 over the Sony 11mm 1.8 for their wide-angle lens needs. The other lens I will highlight, and this one is down to $230. This one is a lens that I would use in my studio for my talking head shots. Right now I'm using a 15mm from Sony at f2. This is a 16mm f1.8, so I would use this just fine. It would look almost exactly the same if I used this on that camera over there. And if I had my time back, if this had been out long before the Sony 15 or the Sigma 16 1.4, this really makes more sense for me because I shoot at f2 here in the studio, and this is a much cheaper lens. So if you were thinking about the Sony 15 but you thought that is way too expensive, I could understand that, or you looked at the Sigma 16 and thought that is also too expensive, even though it's a really good lens at 1.4, just like the Sony at 1.4, at a 1.8, which is not that much of a loss of light, you get a really affordable lens, and you get this really nice field of view for your talking headshots or for your photography. I'm a big fan of what Yongnuo are doing, and every lens they come out with impresses me more and more. Another excellent third-party brand that puts out fast APS-C and fast full-frame lenses at a fraction of the first-party prices is the Meike company. Check this one out. This one is the 33 f1.4, and as you can see, it's a little bit bigger than some of the other lenses I've highlighted around this focal length, but it is a 1.4, so that will give you that extra background separation, that extra bit of light, so if you are in low light situations, and it has a nice aperture ring that is clicky. I do like that a lot, and depending on what country you are in, you may see this lens as the best bargain out of all of the other ones I mentioned at this focal length in the APS-C lineup. This one 33, so you get more of that real life field of view, that travel photography where the buildings to your eye, the way they look, you take a photo, that is how it will look on this, close to a nifty 50 type of look. Still not a big lens, well built, really good optically, like this Meike lens. They also have another APS-C, the 55mm f1.4. So if you like the portrait photography of your APS-C cameras, then you go with a 1.4 from Meike. You will not be disappointed. That 1.4 will give you plenty of background separation, have your subject pop right out there. So there are just a plethora of portrait lenses that you can buy. Take a look at the options, watch the videos down below about each lens, and then make a decision for yourself. Meike also have their full frame lenses at a good discount. A 35mm f2 for $169. So you have a full frame setup, you want to get a nice 35mm look, which a lot of people love for video, then right here you can get an f2 for $169. I had to look twice to read it correctly. It also has a switch for autofocus to manual focus. It is a plastic build, but it does feel pretty good. So I think this is a real bargain for the video shooters out there, especially, but of course, photography as well. But, you know, I think when I think 35, I often think video. They have a 55mm f1.8, and I definitely think more photography when I think 55 1.8, and that one is $159. So check out the video I did on this down below. You can take wonderful pictures with it. You can shoot video if you want, but you are going to have to back up a nice bit. But 55mm, great standard focal length. There's a reason around 50mm is the most popular in the world. People really like that field of view. Now we have two 85mm to talk about. We have a big one and a small one. Now the small one here is an f1.8. So if you want a standard portrait photography lens, 85mm f1.8, and you only want to pay $271, then Meike has you covered. An aperture ring that is clicky. I love that aperture ring on the Meike lenses. Autofocus to manual focus switch will take excellent photos. The autofocus on this is so snappy and reliable. I love it. However, if you don't mind carrying a bigger lens, this is probably the best deal you will get on an 85mm f1.4, because this one is down to $375. $375. I thought that Viltrox 85 1.4 was a good deal, and it is, but it's just this Meike is even cheaper. Now you can see it's a little bit bigger, but not much. The Viltrox is better made, and I do like the images coming straight out of camera, probably a little bit better with the Viltrox. The colors a little bit better micro contrast. However, this thing, I put this up against the G Master 85 1.4, and there were many people who preferred the photos from this Meike lens versus that G Master 1.4. So optically speaking, this is a wonderful lens. Just a bit of a bigger carry. However, at $375, the idea that you could get a photo where people can't distinguish between that shot and a G Master 85mm 1.4, and it costs you $375. That's what I'm saying about being excited about this type of video. Now, there are even more lenses on sale. I will list everything down below. If you see a good deal, make sure you put that there in the comments so that we can all see it and be aware of the fabulous deals that we can all snatch up. So thanks for watching this. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.